Checkmate, verse number 26. We'll come to that. Let's say our prayers first. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjan Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauruvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, the today's shloka reads, Ath chainam nitya jatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho nainum shochatim arhasi. Now, nainam shochitum arhasi. You have no reason to lament. Why are you lamenting, Arjun? Shok kyun mana rahe ho aap? This is going to be said again and again. You see, in the previous shloka also, Krishna was telling Arjun, Nanum shochitum arhasi. Why are you lamenting? So, as we discussed in the last verse, Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna to Arjun and to us to get away with our grief, our lamentation, our continuous, lamentation for the desires and the hankerings we have for this material world. So Krishna is slowly building to a point where he shows us the existence of a spiritual world, of ourselves as a spiritual entity, so that we stop identifying so much with material world and the materialistic desires, lamentations and hankerings. I want this, I want that, I want this. You see, so Krishna is building to a point to tell us this all is a very temporary phase of your life, Arjun, and to us, please get above it, get over it. This material life is like a disease. Do not get settled with the disease. Get over with the disease. Cure this disease, Arjun. Just like if someone has a tumor in the body, and what happens is if sometimes a tumor has been a part of the body for long enough, one may start identifying with it, as a part of his existence. But Krishna is telling us precisely that this material life, this material body, this material world is like a disease that we are suffering from. Don't get settled in with it. Although we have been in this for a long time, we have started thinking that this is us. But Krishna is telling us that this is not really you. You are the spiritual entity. You are beyond this, you're above this, you're eternal, you're knowledgeable, you're blissful. Go ahead and redeem your original nature. Now in this particular verse, Krishna is telling Arjun, I'll read the translation by Srila Prabhupada. If, however, you think that the soul or the symptoms of life will always be born and die forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. Please note the use of the name Mahabahu. Mahabahu means somebody who has, mighty arms, very strong arms. Now, is that a sarcasm? Yes, indeed, it is just a little bit, Krishna is trying to tell Arjun, you're so mighty armed. You're such a mighty warrior. You're so strong. You at least should not lament because of these non-existent reasons. Now, how is Krishna checkmating Arjun? Now, till verse number 25, Krishna was explaining to Arjun, don't lament because you are going to be killing only the body, and that too because it's your duty to uphold dharma, as I am telling you to. Because only the body dies, the soul never dies. And what about Bhishma and Drona, and what about your relatives? Well, they are going to be getting a better body next time, or maybe they just get out of this material world and get a spiritual existence. So that will actually be better for them. So look at them, Arjun. Their bodies are so old. They're so, they've already been living in them for so long. So if they die, fulfilling their duty and maybe killed by you, and you are fulfilling your duty, you both would be upholding dharma, but they as souls will pass into newer bodies. So what's the harm in that, Arjun? And anyways, the soul never dies. The soul can neither be burnt nor be destroyed by wind, water, any weapon. So why are you lamenting, Arjun? The soul of all these people who are in front of you is never going to perish. But the body anyway is going to perish. So if in upholding your duty, you are killing the body, you are actually not doing any harm. You're just doing your duty, and that's going to be good for you as well as for them. Well, but now in verse number 26, Krishna quickly moves to the other side and says, but Arjun, let us say, even if you believe that life is just a bag of chemicals, then also you should not lament. Because if you believe that life is a bag of chemicals, some biochemicals coming together and somehow life comes out from it, then this kind of life is always going to be born and will die forever. There will be no existence of such life after death. Well, it's put a little ironically here, but let's think of it, As Srila Prabhupada is telling us that there is always a class of philosophers, always a class of people who believe that life is nothing but a combination of chemicals. Srila Prabhupada mentions two such philosophies here from past, the Lokayatikas and the Vaibhashikas. Vaibhashikas are a subsect of the Buddhist philosophy, whereas Lokayatikas, which was the philosophy which was headed by Charvak, you might have heard about him, is a completely materialistic philosophy of life. In both these philosophies, however, a common point originates, one that says that there is no existence of soul, or even if there is soul, it has its existence only in association with the body. So when the body dies, the consciousness or the soul also perishes. Many of these philosophies, doesn't even believe in the existence of the soul. They just say life or consciousness comes out or emerges when a certain type of chemicals, get together, and that combination becomes a little mature, and that at certain stage, they start behaving like a living organism. Now, we used to study this, philosophy of origin of life back in our school days. But it always baffled me how some chemicals coming together at certain stage suddenly make a shift over from non-living to living, which means, is life that cheap? Or let us say, is life that easy to come by? Well, as the modern scientists, some of the modern scientists, that is, not all, I pointed out that, scientists like Oppenheimer, scientists like Einstein, like Newton, for instance, they believed in the existence of the Supreme, of God. But there are certain modern scientists who believe that when certain chemicals come together in a certain way, in certain environmental conditions, suddenly aggregates like cells are formed and then they become living suddenly, all of a sudden, And they said, why is that not happening now? There's a question that might arise in our mind. Why is not life being created now? So the answer to that they give is that back then, millions of years ago, somewhere 4 million years ago, the conditions on Earth were very different. It was a reducing atmosphere, no oxygen was present, the temperatures were very high. So those conditions were congenial for the, reactions, and these chemicals just got together and created life. And in fact, some of the scientists have even gone to the length of trying to replicate those kind of conditions in the laboratories and to prove that this can happen. Now, there have been so many tall claims, artificial life created in laboratories. But this is just the work of scientists who are media mongers, which means who are just trying to create a sensation with not so true, statements or headlines. Well, if life has ever been created by the scientists in the lab, it has never been created from non-living chemicals. Life always comes from pre-existing life, and nobody has been able to disprove that till date. Nor it can be, because life indeed does come from pre-existing life. Non-living things can never give birth to living things. But now Krishna is pointing out here, Arjun, even if you believe people like the Lokyatikas and the Vaibhashikas, that is the Shunyavadi sects like the Buddhist sects, for instance, obviously Krishna is not saying that because the Buddhist philosophy came much later. Krishna is talking to Arjun about 5,000 years ago, and Buddhists came about 2,000 something years ago. That was the time Buddhism arose. So, however, Krishna is pointing out in advance that there are always going to be people who think like that life is just a bag of chemicals. So what value is there to life? So, so the checkmate here is, Arjun, first of all, are you killing the souls? Are you a killer of the souls? As I told you, you can never kill a soul. So if you believe in the Vedic philosophy, then you are doing no sin, because you are killing the body by dharmic injunctions, by my will. So no adharam there. But if you are killing a bag of chemicals as you believe bodies and lives to be, then also there is no sin. Because if life is just a bag of chemicals, the chemicals are going to get together and keep creating life. And when that body or the living person dies, it dies forever. So what harm comes to that person, Arjun? This is going to keep happening. And if it does happen that way, then, millions of living beings must be created every moment. So why are you lamenting about that, Arjun? Now let us take a deeper look at this, a bag of chemicals, life. Whenever we hear of an accident, say a train accident, and we see the headlines, train accident or the train derails and at so and so place, so many died, so many injured. Does anybody talk about the damages caused to the train in the headlines? That goes on to show that the living being's life is much more precious than the chemicals. Well, if by killing a bag of chemicals you're only wasting, some chemicals, but when a war takes place, when bombings take place, when missiles are thrown, when atom bombs are thrown, tons and tons of chemicals. Srila Prabhupada is writing this in his purport. Tons and tons of chemicals are wasted for one country trying to win over the other one. So why are you lamenting the wastage of some chemicals? If this body is just a bag of chemicals, then whether you throw a bomb at a building or whether you kill a body, how does it make a difference? There is no difference. So see how intelligently Krishna is checkmating Arjun here. And then actually, I read this somewhere. When somebody dies and if the body is burnt and the ash is collected and the ash is analyzed for the kind of chemicals present in it, well, just like we do in our chemistry labs, an analysis, of how many types of chemicals and in what quantities chemicals are present in a certain object. So similarly, if the body is burnt and the ash collected and analyzed as to how many and what chemicals are present in that, it has been found that the human body can be formed by chemicals which, if you go to the market to buy, will only cost you about 100 or so rupees. 100 rupees body we have. Surely life is not that cheap. I mean, if only chemicals could get together to create this life. 110 rupees body? Let's think it over, Life or consciousness is something more precious. Life, consciousness comes from the soul. It is a symptom of the soul. If you think of it like bag of chemicals, then is our emotions, the emotions of love, the precious wonderful emotions of friendship we feel for each other? Is this just because certain chemicals are acting in certain ways in our mind? We may ask the question, is it when we feel that emotion, these chemicals are secreted in the brain? Or it is because the chemicals are being secreted in the brain, we are feeling those emotions? Actually, when we come to think of it deeply, we feel that emotion here in our heart where the soul resides. It is the emotion which is felt first, and then come the chemicals. So you see, life is not a bag of chemicals. This is actually being proved by Krishna in the previous verses also, and as we see in some of the later verses also, Krishna is going to establish the fact, and he's also saying in the end, Arjun, Mahabahu. Why does he say Mahabahu? Because he's trying to indicate, Arjun, you are a Kshatriya, somebody who knows the Vedic tradition, somebody who knows the Vedic conclusion that we are not bodies, we are souls. Surely you wouldn't be believing this, although I'm saying like this, although I'm just coming on the opposite side to prove an argument to you, to prove a point to you, I know that you are a Kshatriya and a knower of the truth. I know that you know that we are not the bodies, we are the souls. So that sarcasm is actually meant to bring out the person in Arjun who knows the conclusion of the Vedic truths. So let's quickly revise what Krishna is telling Arjun in this shloka, and what Srila Prabhupada is so wonderfully pointing out to us, that life is really not created as a bag of chemicals. It's not just except chemicals come together and suddenly life comes into beings. Nobody has been able to do that till now, whatever false claims the scientists have made. Because a bag of chemicals will probably only cost you a few rupees, but it cannot create life. That is the main conclusion of this verse. So we'll meet up next time for the next wonderful verse 2.27. Till then, I hope you are reading this wonderful book, this read along, wonderful purports of Srila Prabhupada and the insights they give us, to understand life and its meaning, and not like the Buddhist nihilistic approach, which says that life is nihilistic, life is meaningless. You see, so that Shunyavadi approach will really not do for us. Hare Krishna, please keep chanting, please keep reading Bhagavad Gita. It's the Gita Marathon month going on. Highly auspicious to read the Gita, to gift the Gita, to donate Gitas.